Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a delicate and critical topic, manipulation and control in romantic relationships. Whether you're a man on the receiving end of these patterns or a woman wondering if you might sometimes cross the line without realizing it, this conversation is for you. Manipulation doesn't always look like someone yelling or demanding. Often it hides behind smiles, subtle words, or moments of emotional tension. It involves trying to control or influence another person in ways that may not be fair, open, or respectful. And while today's video focuses on the behaviors that some women may use to control men, let's be clear. Manipulation can happen on both sides of a relationship. No one gender has a monopoly on unhealthy dynamics. This video isn't about blame, it's about awareness. When we shine a light on these subtle yet powerful behaviors, we give ourselves the power to make better choices, to set healthier boundaries, to speak up when something feels off, and to recognize when love begins to feel more like control. So stay with me through to the end. We'll walk through 7 specific patterns of manipulation with real-life examples and guidance on how to recognize and respond to them, because everyone deserves a relationship built on respect, not pressure. Knowing what to look out for is the first step toward that kind of love. Let's get started. Number 1, when love feels like pressure, recognizing emotional blackmail in relationships. Vulnerability is supposed to build trust, but when used against you, it becomes a weapon. Emotional blackmail is one of the most subtle yet damaging forms of manipulation. A man can experience it, doesn't shout or strike, it whispers guilt and wraps control in the language of care. This kind of manipulation often starts with guilt. A man might express a boundary or a personal need only to be met with comments like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me," or "You must not love me." If you're even thinking that the goal isn't understanding, it's obedience over time, these statements push men to suppress their voices to keep the peace. Other times, emotional blackmail is rooted in fear, not always overt threats, but subtle implications. A woman may hold private things he once shared over his head, hinting she could use them if things don't go her way, or she might withdraw affection, threaten to leave, or create public drama due to non-compliance. The message becomes clear: you'll suffer if you don't do what I want. What makes this especially harmful is how it erodes self-trust. The man begins questioning his motives. He wonders if he is being selfish or too sensitive. Slowly he loses his inner compass and begins living not with authenticity but with caution. But love should never make you afraid to speak. If a woman turns your honesty into leverage, if she uses your past against you, or makes you feel wrong for having needs that not love, its control. And the more you accommodate it, the more invisible you become in your relationship. Real intimacy means your emotions are safe, not used as currency. It means disagreements don't become threats. If you're constantly feeling guilty, nervous, or silenced, it's time to step back and ask a tricky question: am I being loved or am I being managed? Freedom in love begins with truth and no connection that thrives on fear, guilt, or obligation will ever feel like home. Number 2, when intimacy becomes leverage in relationships. Intimacy is meant to be a language of closeness, not a tool of control, but when used strategically, offered or withheld to influence behavior, it quietly shifts from affection to negotiation. Many men don't notice it at first. It begins with a pause in connection, a withheld touch, a distant response. At first it seems circumstantial, but over time a pattern emerges. Affection comes when he complies, disappears when he doesn't. Some women use this tactic consciously, while others have absorbed it through cultural norms that frame SIP as a reward. Either way, the result is the same. When a woman pretends to be upset or offended just long enough to justify withholding intimacy, the message becomes clear without needing words. If he wants closeness, he has to cooperate, and slowly the warmth that once brought them together becomes conditional for men. This dynamic is especially confusing. Physical intimacy often serves as their emotional anchor, a way to feel seen, accepted, and safe. When that anchor is tied to compliance, it breeds anxiety and quiet resentment. He starts wondering not how to connect, but how to avoid being punished. Over time, affection feels earned rather than mutual, like something to be negotiated. This erosion doesn't happen in dramatic ways. It shows up subtly, a woman using intimacy to get her way or making a man feel guilty for wanting closeness when she doesn't. Sometimes it escalates to threats, emotional withdrawal, or holding secrets over his head until he agrees. These aren't just bad habits, they're emotional power plays, and they damage the very trust and intimacy that was built to nurture a healthy connection. Can't survive under quiet blackmail. When a seer becomes a silent bargain, the relationship begins to rot beneath the surface. A man may stay physically loyal, but start to pull away emotionally. Some will retreat, others may seek comfort elsewhere, not always in another person, but in distance, distraction, or silence to rebuild trust. Both partners must see intimacy not as a reward, but as a reflection of the relationship's health. When it becomes a bargaining chip, it's not just love at risk, it's respect, safety, and emotional truth. Because once affection becomes leverage, connection is no longer a gift, it's a cost. Number 3, the sweet trap. When compliments conceal intentions, compliments, when genuine, can be one of the most potent forms of connection between a man and a woman. They affirm, uplift, and create warmth. But when praise feels overly sweet, sudden, or oddly placed, it's worth slowing down and asking, is this admiration or manipulation in disguise? Sometimes a woman showers a man with compliments that feel out of sync with the situation, that regular black shirt is suddenly the most handsome thing she's ever seen, or a simple text response earns over-the-top praise like, "You're so thoughtful and emotionally profound, I've never met a man like you." While these words might flatter the ego, their timing often reveals something more profound. Soon after a favor is asked, a request is made, or a boundary is tested. This tactic isn't always malicious, but it is strategic. Excessive flattery lowers defenses. It plays on a man's desire to feel seen and appreciated, especially if he doesn't hear those things often. The compliments boost his ego, and when that happens, resistance softens, logic becomes less sharp. He feels connected, even indebted, just as she moves in with her. As the clearest red flag is inconsistency. If praise only appears right before she needs something, or disappears entirely when she doesn't, it's not affection, it's leverage. A woman truly interested in you will offer genuine admiration even in small, uneventful moments. She won't wait until there is something she wants. Real connection is built on steady, authentic appreciation, not waves of praise that crash just before the tide of expectation. A compliment should never be a trade. The more a man learns to spot when admiration is used as a tool, the more he stays grounded in reality, and the less likely he is to be led by words that feel sweet but carry a hidden price. Number 4. The cost of conditional love. When proof becomes a demand. In the delicate dance of relationships, a subtle but powerful dynamic often goes unnoticed until it erodes the foundation of trust and affection. This dynamic manifests when love becomes a transaction, and affection is measured not by feelings but by actions. Specifically, actions demanded as proof. The phrase, "if you love me, you'll do this," can sound innocent enough at first, even playful, but when repeated it morphs into a tool of control that traps men in a cycle of guilt and obligation. Many men are caught off guard when requests for love's proof escalate from small gestures to extravagant demands. What begins as a desire for attention or reassurance can quickly spiral into expectations for expensive gifts like cars or lavish trips. These demands are rarely about the objects themselves. Instead, they serve as tangible evidence that the emotional connection exists and is valid. This insistence on material proof shifts the relationship's focus from mutual care to conditional approval, where love is no longer freely given but must be earned and validated through sacrifice. This pattern is insidious because it weaves itself into the fabric of emotional connection, often masked by declarations of affection. Repeatedly leveraging the bond between partners to justify demands wears down resistance. The emotional weight behind phrases like, "if you loved me," presses on a man's sense of responsibility and desire to please. Making refusal feel like rejection or failure over time, this leads to compliance fueled not by genuine desire, but guilt, fear, or the desperate need to maintain harmony. The problem with such conditional love is that it is not sustainable. It forces men to measure their worth by what they can provide rather than who they are, the sacrifices demanded can extend beyond financial strain, reaching personal freedoms and emotional boundaries. A man may say yes to things that do not align with his values simply to keep peace or prove loyalty. This creates an imbalance and resentment that slowly undermines the relationship's health. Jokes or occasional requests for reassurance are natural in any partnership. Yet when the plea for proof becomes a pattern, it signals manipulation rather than love. Recognizing when proof is being weaponized to control behavior and erode autonomy is essential. Healthy love is unconditional. It does not demand payments in gifts or favors. Instead, it fosters trust that grows from consistent respect and genuine care. Men who encounter these demands must learn to discern authentic affection from emotional leverage. Standing firm with kindness and clarity about personal limits preserves dignity and promotes true intimacy. As the saying goes, love that is bought is not love that is felt. When demands measure love, it loses its essence and becomes a transaction of expectations rather than a shared journey of the heart. Understanding this dynamic helps men navigate relationships with eyes wide open, avoiding the costly trap of conditional love and building connections where affection flows freely without strings attached. Because in the end, the most meaningful proof of love is not what is given, but how naturally it is expressed. Number 5. The power and pitfall of dramatic statements in relationships. Words carry immense weight in the complex dance of emotional connection between men and women. Yet sometimes those words become weapons rather than bridges. Dramatic statements are a common tactic where exaggerated declarations are deployed to evoke guilt, confusion, and tip the emotional balance. These statements often come loaded with heavy implications like "you're the only person I ever loved," a phrase that is less about expressing genuine affection and more about creating a psychological trap. Such declarations magnify the emotional stakes in a conversation, making it difficult for a man to respond without feeling cornered or responsible for disproving the claim. This tactic doesn't just rest on bold claims. It thrives on twisting and replaying a man's words with added emotional layers. When a simple comment is echoed back with an intense or distorted framing, the original message becomes a weapon against him. For example, a man expressing a concern about time apart might hear, "So you don't care about us anymore," turning a reasonable statement into an accusation. This manipulation fosters confusion by making him question his intentions and feelings. It's a subtle yet effective way to destabilize his emotional footing and force him into defensive mode. The goal behind these dramatic maneuvers is not dialogue or understanding, but submission. The emotional overload pushes him toward agreement or silence to avoid further guilt or conflict. This dynamic shifts power away from balanced communication to one-sided emotional pressure. Men caught in this cycle often find themselves apologizing for feelings they never truly expressed or defending choices they haven't made. It's an exhausting loop that chips away at confidence and distorts reality. Recognizing the signs of dramatic statements is essential. They reveal more about insecurity and control than about authentic emotional exchange. Healthy relationships invite honesty and respect, even in disagreement. When hyperbolic claims and guilt-laden reframing weigh conversations down, it's a signal to pause and reflect. Communication should clarify, not confuse. Connection should heal, not harm. Emotional drama has its place in stories and art, but not as a tool to navigate real intimacy. True emotional maturity lies in conversations that honor truth without weaponizing words. When you hear declarations designed to overwhelm or coerce, remember that your feelings and voice matter. You deserve dialogue rooted in clarity and respect, not emotional spectacle. One of the most attractive qualities a man can embody is the strength to step back from these dramatic moments and hold to your truth. Because in the calm that follows the storm of exaggerated statements lies a space for genuine connection and mutual respect to grow. Number 6, the just joking trap. When humor masks hurt in relationships, a subtle but powerful tactic can undermine trust and sow confusion in the delicate dance of romantic connections. It's the just joking defense, where hurtful or critical remarks are masked as humor and then quickly dismissed if challenged. This pattern can be especially damaging because it blurs the lines between playful teasing and emotional manipulation. The cycle often begins with a comment that cuts deeper than intended, but the delivery is disguised with a smile or laugh. A woman might say something sharp about a man's appearance, habits, or choices, and when he reacts with hurt or confusion, she waves it off, saying it was only a joke. This swift denial invalidates his feelings and doubts his perception of reality if it was truly a joke. Why does it sting so much? And if he points out his pain, he is often accused of being too sensitive or not understanding humor. This tactic is particularly insidious because these jokes rarely elicit laughter from others. They carry hidden criticisms or unspoken frustrations, cleverly cloaked in the sarcasm or irony over time. The man may question whether the negative comments are truly disguised, or if they represent deeper feelings she's unwilling to express openly. The emotional toll builds quietly but steadily, leading to hard-to-articulate resentment. The impact goes beyond mere hurt feelings. When humor is weaponized, it erodes the foundation of honest communication. It creates an environment where expressing vulnerability feels risky because it might be met with a cut and joke rather than empathy. This undercuts emotional safety, making it difficult for either partners to share openly without fear of ridicule or dismissal. For men navigating this dynamic, it's essential to recognize the red flags if you find yourself repeatedly confused about whether a comment was meant to be playful or hurtful, or if you need to constantly second-guess your reactions. It's a sign that humor is being used as a shield rather than a bridge. True intimacy flourishes in spaces where both partners can speak honestly and feel secure, not where words are traps dressed up as laughter. Understanding this pattern allows men to set clear boundaries and foster healthier communication. Responding calmly and directly, without getting pulled into defensiveness or confusion, signals emotional strength. Saying something as simple as, "I know you said that was a joke, but it hurt me," challenges the dismissal and invites genuine dialogue. Ultimately, relationships thrive on respect and authenticity. Humor should uplift and connect, not confuse and control. When jokes leave wounds, it's a call to examine what's being said behind the laughter and insist on a love that honors truth and tenderness. Number 7. The silent weapon: understanding crocodile tears. In relationships, tears are often seen as a sign of genuine emotion and vulnerability, but not all tears are sincere. Some women use tears strategically, so-called crocodile tears, to manipulate situations and gain control. For many men, seeing a woman cry triggers discomfort in a strong urge to back off or concede, even if they feel justified. This reaction is a typical psychological response rooted in social conditioning that equates female tears with fragility and distress. The key to handling this is distinguishing between real and fake tears. Genuine crying comes with physical signs like a trembling voice, irregular breathing, and emotional depth expressed through body language. Crocodile tears, on the other hand, tend to appear suddenly and lack these natural signs of genuine emotion, often seeming rehearsed or timed to create drama. Recognizing this difference doesn't mean losing empathy. Instead, it helps men avoid being manipulated by emotional blackmail disguised as vulnerability. When tears are used to guilt trip or silence, men can stay grounded, protect their feelings, and respond with clarity rather than confusion. This tactic often surfaces when a woman wants to avoid responsibility or shift the focus away from her actions. Men who fail to recognize it may feel frustrated and question their reality, falling into a pattern where empathy is exploited. Observing the consistency and context of such behavior is essential for responding wisely in healthy relationships. Tears bring people closer, but when tears become a tool for manipulation, they create distance and mistrust. Men who can spot crocodile tears without shutting down their compassion gain a more straightforward, more confident path through emotional interactions. True power lies in recognizing when tears are real and responding with honest understanding. Number 8. How to respond to manipulation. When manipulation creeps into a relationship, it often comes wrapped in subtlety, making it easy to miss until the damage is done. The first step to breaking free from this invisible trap is to pause and think before reacting. Reacting impulsively can amplify the manipulation, leaving you more tangled in emotional webs. Instead, taking a step back to assess the situation fully provides clarity. Context matters because every word and action holds layers beyond the immediate moment. It's crucial to avoid responses fueled by pressure or heightened emotions, which manipulators often rely on to control outcomes. Saying no becomes a powerful tool in this process, and it is essential to remember that declining a request or setting limits does not diminish your love or care for the other person. Healthy relationships thrive on boundaries, not on constant agreement or self-sacrifice. When a man learns to prioritize his needs and voice discomfort without guilt, he reclaims respect and self-worth. Being agreeable all the time is unsustainable and can lead to a slow erosion of confidence and identity. Saying no is not rejection, but an affirmation of self that signals emotional maturity and strength in cases where manipulation is frequent and starts to weigh heavily on mental health. It's vital to consider the possibility of emotional abuse. Chronic manipulation is not just a series of unpleasant episodes, but a pattern that can cause deep psychological wounds. Recognizing when a relationship crosses this boundary is both courageous and necessary. It is perfectly acceptable to walk away in pursuit of well-being. Leaving does not mean failure, but a commitment to self-preservation and growth. Ultimately, the power lies in awareness and deliberate action. When you think before you respond, learn to say no clearly, and are willing to walk away, you build a protective shield around your heart. This shield is not a barrier to love, but a gateway to relationships built on respect, trust, and genuine connection. Love that requires manipulation is not love, but a game where only one person truly wins. Conclusion: manipulation erodes the foundation of trust and mutual respect that healthy relationships require to thrive. While some behaviors may appear subtle or excusable at first, patterns of emotional control, whether through guilt, drama, flattery, or withdrawal, can gradually diminish a person's sense of self-worth and emotional security. Recognizing these behaviors isn't about assigning blame, but empowering yourself to set clear boundaries and protect your emotional well-being. True partnership should feel safe, supportive, and balanced. Unlike a constant test or negotiation for love and approval, when you begin to notice recurring tactics that leave you feeling confused, silenced, or drained, it may be time to reassess the dynamics of your relationship. Healthy love never requires manipulation to survive. Take the time to reflect on your own experiences, your observed patterns, and how you respond. Your insights might help someone else navigate a difficult situation. If this content resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to explore more meaningful conversations about relationships, emotional health, and personal growth.